Thank you very much for watching this presentation. I am Kruakae Pothong. I am a visiting research fellow at the London School of Economics and Political Science. During this research, I worked as a research fellow in the Design Informatics department at the University of Edinburgh. I'm here on behalf of our team to present our investigation into how people in the roles of users and data subjects make sense of data that result from their interaction with our data-driven societies through deliberative live-action roleplay and the learning for design. The myriad of digital economic systems that interconnect and use data about us are complex assemblages that include diverse types of value, which shape how we and other members of society envision the possibilities associated with data, and in turn, how we form data imaginaries. At the same time, our data imaginary is shaped by a system of meaning-making of the social world. Therefore, imaginaries embody social, cultural, and technical structures, including value systems that in part constitute subjectivity and provide a resource that, according to our second author, Chris Speed, enables new forms of life by projecting positive goals and seeking to attain them. But are we, the end users and data subjects, the only group of people who capitalize on the data about ourselves? Zuboff said no. Public and private sectors capitalize on data about us, and depending on our understanding of various systems, we either become more or less conscious of the implications in our daily engagement with digital technologies. Sometimes we'll notice and are even annoyed by an increase in unsolicited email or advertisement about the very thing we've just bought online. So, data is the new gold. Public and private entities seem affluent in extracting value out of data. However, individuals' imagination about what benefits we can extract from data tend to be limited by what's available off the shelf. So perhaps, as end users, we aren't getting as much out of the data we generate. How then can designers and researchers help users navigate these differences in data values and increase our agency in our engagement with data-driven societies? To answer this question, designers and researchers face the following challenges. 1. Data value is ethereal. 2. Designing data-driven technologies involve diverse and at times competing values. 3. In the design process, public voices and their values are often crowded out by commercial interests. To address these challenges, our Lancaster colleagues engaged co-design with avid self-trackers to identify how personal informatics can improve their experience, which resulted in personal informatic prototypes. Our Edinburgh team worked with artists from Furterfield to create a story world for a live-action roleplay with a deliberative edge to engage the general public in a playful but critical discussions about diverse yet competing values embedded in the personal informatics prototypes. To observe and identify design attributes that help people work through their value differences, we recast the personal informatics prototypes to represent two competing value systems, centralized versus decentralized data systems, and conditioned our participants to deliberate on terms that would enable them to accept and adopt the device that conflict with their value systems. Here are the personal informatics prototypes called data blocks and capturator, resulting from the preceding co-design process. We converted data blocks into the national exemplary technology of a fictional nation called New Bluestead. This data blocks is now called the blocks. The capturator was turned into the national exemplary technology of another fictional nation called Ireland. We wove the technical capabilities of these devices into our LARP storyline of the two nations divided by their cultures, reflected in their respective technologies. The New Bluestead's blocks supports complex processing and optimization of real-time data for knowledge generation, production, and automated governance system called the Intelligent Dynas. The emotional data capturing capacity of Irelandish Pebble reflects Ireland's ecologically diverse, emotionally harmonious, and democratic society. In our LARP, these two nations with competing value systems must agree terms to exchange their national exemplary technology through deliberation. To test our method, we ran two online LARP sessions. The first one had 15 participants, while the second one we had 14 attendees, and the following videos gives a taste of our transcultural data-packed LARP.
Transcultural Data Pact is a live-action roleplay, or LARP, a game of serious make-believe. in which roleplay is used to explore how personal and collective data practices and devices might shape the attitudes and fortunes of a society.
Emotional intelligence that they purport to hold slows things down a great deal, and I feel that our efficiency will be compromised.
I'm very concerned that they are not very in touch with their emotions, and we have a steep hill to climb.
If they really don't know what they're doing, which is what it seems to come across as, then the chances are if we have access to that technology, we can take the data that we need.
I think the other important element of the data practices, even if we're not giving our own data, is that the Pebble system is not misused.
We want to be seen as a society that cares.
The use of deliberation as our LARP game mechanic allowed participants to explore and critique the values that shape the real-world data systems and practices, whether the participants themselves subscribe to these values or not. This critical and reflective process of the in-game deliberation also generated a lively discussion in the post-LARP reflection. The discussion captured in the following video shows that our deliberative LARP enables participants to reflect on their own digital engagement and data practices.
It reminded me a lot of the geopolitical context of data and surveillance. The Blue Setter concept around automation and etc. just reminded me of my time living in China for many years.
A lot about bringing it to the personal, like personal data understanding of what's held by you, what's held for you, your relationship with the sort of black boxes, as other people have talked about them.
Concept that not providing the data could be criminal or not allowed. Kind of thinking whether this is where we are kind of heading. If you want to use Facebook, for example, you can't use Facebook and not provide your data.
It did bring up some things that I haven't thought about before, like the fact that Pebble entries are not policed or whatever. So that basically is what social media now is, everyone putting their best foot forward.
Collectively, we learned from the in-game negotiation as well as participants' post-LARP reflection that people are grappling with competing values that shape today's data systems, their own and others' data practices. Participants, like many of us, struggled to navigate the value differences that shape both the technical structure of our data-driven societies and data practices within the societies. The following video summarizes what they learned from working through these differences in our LARP.
The rub in each society that there, which is great. The kind of messiness and complexity, and the winners and losers in both the worlds, and to weigh up against each other what we will lose and what will we gain. That to me felt at the heart of this, like how do we move forward in the future, learning to cooperate and collaborate, knowing that there will never be everybody agreeing on everything. Because I feel like currently all our kind of technologies, especially on social media, are weaponizing outrage, are pitting people against each other.
The first thing I thought, and this kind of comes directly from my own co-design practices, why is consensus important? That's not important. It's surely, how we approach it, how we approach these negotiations, these conversations is really important. But it's not important that absolutely everyone agrees on on like this kind of one pinnacle point, because how can that possibly happen? The more complex the issue, the more perspectives there are and experiences and competing demands. So I think you're absolutely spot on. It's like, well, how do you move forward when you know that?
The answer to participants' questions and our initial research questions lie in their in-game deliberation. From the excerpts here, you will see the problem resulting from value differences in the two nations marked in red, and participants' proposals on how to address these differences in green. The common approach to address value differences we observe here are adaptability and negotiability. Here, adaptability manifests in the ability to easily adapt the technology that they consider adopting to serve their purposes and to promote their values beyond the product's intended use. Negotiability manifests in the ability to dynamically negotiate terms of data usage and other norms with other stakeholders. Our two LARP sessions ended slightly differently, one with a no deal and the other with a let's take this foreign technology for a ride and see if we can strike a deal value later. From these two different endings, we learned that where there are hopes for adaptability as an exercise of agency and negotiability, there are greater chances of acceptability and adoption. However, the key ingredient that leads to allowance for adaptability and negotiability is empathy for the different views and values. As one of our participants noted, the more complex the systems, the more diverse the range of stakeholders and views. It is impossible to design a data infrastructure that adheres to everyone's values. However, designers can build in the key ingredients, adaptability as a form of agency, and negotiability, that enable users to transcend value differences embedded in the devices and data systems that they are connected to, as demonstrated in the experience-based and democratically legitimized findings from our deliberative LARP. Thank you.